Author's House.
Hi everyone, today is September 24th, 2021. I am Nicole and I'm from Authors Press, and I'm gathered here today with Marta Tullis, the author of Under Five Flags.
Do I need to, it says, there's a screen here. Do I need to punch something?
No, it's fine.
All right.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, Marta?
Well, I am a 69-year-old retired configuration analyst from United Launch Alliance that has written a book about her husband's first 25 years of his life in North Korea. I have had rather poor health lately, but before that, my husband and I like to go hiking quite a bit in the mountains, and that's where a lot of the information for this book came from, was on our trips both to the mountains and coming back. Let's see.
So for the first question I have, sorry, did you have more to say?
Not really.
Okay. For our first question, I wanted to ask you, what is your book about?
My book is about it's a memoir of the first 25 years of my husband's life in North Korea. And essentially it includes a certain amount of Korean history and incidental family information that is specific kind of to his family, but it also goes into a number of the Korean customs and some of the politics and history of Korea.
Interesting. Me personally, I don't know much about the politics and culture of Korea, so if I haven't read your book yet, but if I were to, it would teach me a lot, because I know nothing about Korea.
Most people really don't. It's not a country that has received a lot of press except for the communist end of it, which has been in the news lately. So yeah, it's the Hermit Kingdom is well named for that, because it is truly a place that has been kept secret for a long time, largely by their own choice.
Why did you write this book?
I wrote this book largely at the instigation of my family and friends who, after hearing about my husband's life, were unanimous in saying, "You need to write a book about it." Plus, I wanted to provide a record of what my husband underwent, not only for the family, but also for posterity, because I believe it contains a lot of information that people who are interested in the subject of Korea might not find elsewhere.
So what you're saying is that there's information in your book that is unique to your book.
Well, I don't know if it's unique to my book, but it's certainly not easily found elsewhere. I mean, Korean traditions, such as their marriage customs, their funeral customs, their customs for children in when they're being named, the name process. I don't know that you could find that necessarily easily anywhere else.
What is the time frame of your book?
It begins when my husband's father left the farm where he was a sharecropper and went to Pyongyang trying to seek a better life. His family actually were all sharecroppers, and essentially he was becoming very poor living in that environment, since there was no finances were uncertain, the ability to eat was uncertain. He just believed it was time to leave home and go find himself another occupation.
You're telling me that he eventually decided to explore the world.
Well, not so much explore the world as just find another job so that he could eat.
For himself,
taking himself out of his parents' obligation.
Who would you say is your target audience?
Well, I believe the people who would be interested in this book would largely be either people who had immigrated from Korea but were not well versed in Korean history, as well as possibly Korean War veterans, and also people who are interested in hearing about a situation that was extremely dire for a number of years, about the first 50 years of the 20th century, and how well some people were able to pull through.
For a second there. It sounds like a very heavy educational topic, something that would move a lot of people who learn about.
Well, I think there's a lot of detail. There's a certain amount of historical detail about the various wars that were occurring in Korea at that time, but there's also a lot of personal detail in terms of the family and their customs. And it, I think, makes for a good read for somebody who knows very little about Korea, but I think it also is rather exciting in certain parts, such as when my husband tried to become a kamikaze under the Japanese, and when he pulled a U.S. soldier out of a minefield when they were near the Imjin River, retreating from the Chinese invasion.
It sounds like a song I recently heard, and the song is, much more broad story, but it reminds me of a song I heard talking about something very similar. And I just remember thinking, wow, somebody lived through that when I heard that song. And
yes.
That's the exact same thing I'm thinking now talking to you is, wow, somebody really lived through this.
Yes.
How incredible. What kind of information is contained in this book?
Well, it's a broad brush of historical information describing the situation of Korea at the time of Huck's father leaving home, as well as the historical background for when the Korean monarchy was dissolved and the Japanese came and essentially took the country over. They didn't really invade, they just kind of sent a lot of people as migrants to more or less take over the country. There's some discussion of the Korean protesters who objected to this, and who, of course, did not get their wish to throw the Japanese out. I mean, the Samil Rebellion just never took hold. And it was a kind of a dire situation in that the Japanese were starting to displace a lot of Korean farmers and people in trades. They were being edged out, and a lot of them had to flee to Manchuria. So
this isn't one of the questions that I'm supposed to ask, but I'm more asking out of curiosity. Where or what is Manchuria?
Manchuria is the portion of China that is just above Korea. I guess it's probably
it's a place then.
Place, yeah. It's
okay. I did not know that.
Yeah, it's a distinctive place that I'm sure is partly Chinese. It may be partly Russian, depending on where the border lines have been drawn recently. But yeah, it's north of Korea.
What happened in Huck's life that inspired him to become a teacher and leave Korea?
Well, teachers were extremely well regarded in Korean society. They were better paid in many cases than doctors or lawyers. And besides which, my husband, I think, had a natural bent for teaching. And there were a number of teachers' colleges in Pyongyang that were within walking distance of his house. Also, the family did not have enough money to send him to medical school, which was really his very first choice. But he decided to be a teacher, and I believe did pretty well at it, both in Korea and later on when he came to this country. He didn't actually teach here, but he was responsible for writing and instructing various engineers at Martin Marietta and Lockheed Martin.
What is the main theme or message of your book?
Well, I think the main message of my book is that if you are in a situation that is as dire and uncompromising as it was in Korea at that time, you have to look to your spiritual life to help you along. You really need to be able to be responsible for your own actions and direct your own destiny. And the spiritual life will also give you courage and heart to do the hard things that need to be done.
Sometimes courage is something we all need, but something we all struggle to find.
Yes, well, I believe that a lot of times it can be found in a spiritual basis of living as well as physical deprivation. I do believe that many of the trials that my husband was subjected to and subjected himself to probably built an inner strength that enabled the courage to come forth.
So, from what it sounds like to me, you say there are spiritual or religious notes in this book. Is that right?
I don't believe, no, not religious. My husband was a Confucian, and he was surrounded by many different religions. And even though the Orient is full of different religions, there's an atmosphere of spirituality, I think, that my husband possessed that was not necessarily connected to religion, but it came from an inner vital force of wanting to do the right thing and to help people out and to create a harmonious environment in all of the 5 governmental auspices under which he lived.
Interesting. I know a lot of people who, or not a lot of people, but I have heard of a lot of authors who will include religious notes in their book, specifically not spiritual, specifically religious. And I think it's interesting that yours is the other way around.
Well, as I say, I believe my husband was a very spiritual person. I believe the conflict that he found himself in created a lot of spiritual angst and striving. And I do believe he came out the better for it. I believe his life was improved by it. And I believe many others were as well.
That's good. I'm glad it bettered a lot of people's lives. How might the information and messages in this book be used in today's society?
Well, again, getting back to the spiritual aspect of things, I think having an outlook on life that requires you to take charge of your own destiny and to be responsible for your actions, and to recognize that this whole life is somewhat transitory, and that there are many other things that exist outside of ourselves, will give you courage, and it will enable you to do the things that need to be done, even if they're very hard.
Enabling people to do things that they need to do, regardless of how hard it is important. Very, very important. How did Huck contribute to American society after he left Korea?
Well, he came to the United States and became a mechanical engineer, going both to Hastings College as well as University of Wisconsin. He when he was graduated, he got a job and designed farm equipment. And after that job ended, he went to the Koss place, Koss equipment for headphones. And after that, he went to RCA, and then he went to Sanyo. And then after Sanyo, he went to Martin Marietta, which became Lockheed Martin. And in each area, he designed something of importance that contributed to U.S. society.
I wonder how many of the things he did back then affect what I experience in society. And I guess that's a little bit more of a personal aspect, a response to your question, but I can't help but wonder how many of the things that he did then affect my life now.
Well, if you use Koss earphones, he probably made a contribution there. If you have ever watched a color
actually have a pair.
If you watch color TV, probably not now, but at one point, he designed a degaussing coil as a circuit breaker for that television. For Lockheed Martin, he designed part of the payload fairing, which sends up satellites into orbit.
Oh, so
for Atlas V.
So in a way, yeah, what he did has impacted literally everyone on Earth. Sending a satellite in the sky affects literally everyone on Earth. And I think that is incredible to think about, that your husband, had such a great effect on literally the whole world.
Yes.
That's incredible. What is the most memorable part of your book?
Well, I think the portion that describes him going into the minefield after the wounded soldier, and pulling him out, after having created a rope out of wheat stalks and putting him into the ambulance, all under enemy fire, is probably the chief contributing thing that, or maybe most memorable event that Huck provided for the book.
And you said that's something he lived in real life, right?
Yes, yes.
Wow.
And after his money was stolen by one of the South Koreans that he associated with, the entire battalion took up a collection to send him to the United States to get an engineering degree.
And did he receive that engineering degree, if you don't mind me asking?
Yes. No, he was a graduate of University of Wisconsin.
I just have a couple more questions for you before we wrap this up. Where can readers find out more about you and your book?
Well, the book is for sale on Amazon.com.
So your readers could probably find out more through Amazon and also our Authors Press website, if I'm right.
I believe, yes.
How do you feel about working with Authors Press?
Well, they're, I don't know. They sort of caught me out of the blue on this one because I wasn't expecting it. But so far they've seemed to be very helpful. I'm looking forward to what Diana Spears can do for me in terms of arranging to have my book more widely publicized at the
marketing portion of it.
Right.
I really think that if someone takes the time to flip through and look at the stories and the information included in your book, I think that a lot of people would want to read it, and a lot of people would buy it and recommend it to their friends and family, especially in today's society with how diverse and how eager everybody is to learn and to discover more. I think that a lot of people will want to buy your book.
Well, I would hope so.
I hope so too, and I really hope that you come back and work with us more. But that's all the questions I have for you now. So thank you for meeting with me today, Marta.
Thank you.
It was an honor to discuss your book with you and learn a little bit about your husband. Thank you so much for teaching us about him.
Well, thank you. I appreciate your interview.
If you have any questions or concerns, feel free to reach out to us either via our email or our phone number. But that's it. It was such a pleasure to talk to you. Have a wonderful day, Marta. Stay safe.
Mm-hmm.
Bye.
Bye.